Story 1. Mid-1990s hip-hop. I was a chubby, pale English kid trying to dress like I was in Cypress Hill. This basically involved growing out my curly hair, trying to grow a light goatee, and wearing a bucket hat. Story 2. Thinking no one understood me and feeling emotional about it. I hated when my mother would say, "I felt the same way when I was your age." But it turns out she was right. Teenagers hate hearing that their experiences aren't unique. But it's true. Whenever I had a fight with her, I would storm into my room and plan to wear all black for the rest of my life. I never did it, but in those moments I was very emotional. Bonus embarrassing fun fact. If you scroll far enough in the comments section for the Bring Me to Life video by Evanescence on YouTube, there's a comment from 14-year-old me that says, "I feel like I'm the only one who can relate to this. I'm glad it got no likes and hardly anyone saw it because that's the most dramatic nonsense ever. I'm 22 now and cringe thinking about it." Story 3. Middle and high school friends. My parents often told me that most of those friendships wouldn't last, and to not prioritize them over my responsibilities. They were right. Story 4. I insisted I was in love with a boy I met at Six Flags. I spent a lot of money on phone cards to call him and wanted my mom to drive me to meet him again, but she refused. I still have the diary entry where I wrote that she does not understand our love and I hate her for not taking it seriously. Funnily enough, the next diary entry a few months later said, "Forget him, he was a loser. But there is this new guy." Story 5. I bought a bicycle motocross bike and was convinced I would be in the extreme games. It turns out I lack the coordination and bone density to reach that level. Story 6. Long hair as a guy is a revolving phase. I will grow it out for a few years and then chop it off when no one expects it. It is hilarious to be treated like a stranger until people realize that it is still just me. I am currently on my longest stretch so far, almost 6 years, and many people in my life now have never seen me with short hair. So next time will be extra fun. Story 7. Bonsai was a phase for a while, but I left the house for a few days on a trip and came back to find my tree dead. I gave up on bonsai after that. Story 8. I was definitely never going to get married. The institution was antiquated, and the concepts were bound up with paternalism. I have been married for over 20 years now. Story 9. I was really into unicorns in middle school, and for some reason I was convinced my love for them would last. I do not hate them or anything, but I am definitely not obsessed like I used to be. Story 10. Pink is a hideous color and should be banned. I actually like all shades of pink, but at the time it felt as if everyone was pushing me to adore pink, so of course I had to hate it. Story 11. Wanted to be a boy from ages 6 or 7 to about 10. It was purely a phase. I know it is not for many people, but for me it was. Story 12. I had a phase where I was agoraphobic. I did not know what it was at the time because people did not discuss mental health in the late 1980s and early 1990s. My mother, who was an extrovert and loved to meet and talk to perfect strangers, was an absolute saint who helped me ease out of this phobia by taking me to places with little to no crowds. She never shamed me or told me to grow up. This period lasted almost 2 years. Thank you, Mom, for loving the weird kid and helping me overcome an awkward period in my life. Story 13. Here's the thing about that. I would say the punk and emo stuff was a phase, and in a way it was, but I am also wearing my old My Chemical Romance hoodie while writing this. I no longer wear it to be edgy or cool, just because I still like the music, though I do not listen to it like it is a religion anymore. Other phases of mine I pick back up routinely, like painting, guitar, and language learning. Life comes in waves of wants and inclinations, even to the point where, once a year, my internal Mass Effect clock goes off and I know I have to play the games. Story 14. Being bisexual turned out to be a phase. I am actually gay but did not have the heart at the time to tell my parents, especially my dad, that the family name would stop with me. Story 15. Just the general teenage emotion of, woe is me. No one understands me and my life is so miserable because grown-ups just don't get it. I was so angry at the world for honestly no good reason. Every adult told me that is how every teenager feels and it is just something you grow out of. But that was absolutely unfathomable to me until suddenly it was not. I was like, wow, what even was that? Why was I randomly a miserable pile of misunderstood self-pity for a few years? It is difficult because even if someone scientifically explains to you that it is basically just your brain chemistry going crazy during puberty and it will stop feeling that way the moment you are done with it, that does not help. Because in that moment the emotions feel real, and I am a fully developed human with my own mind and everything. I am not being manipulated by some silly hormones. The adults just do not get me. When that is very much exactly what it is. Story 16. My first boyfriend, from ages 14 to 18, was someone I believed was my one and only. I thought we were going to get married and have children. However, he fell in love with someone else, and I realized I did not actually want children after all. Fortunately, I understood this before having any. Story 17. Bisexuality. In the end, my mother was right. I do not like women in that way. I just think they are really cool, and I do like men a lot. Like a lot. Story 18. My depression still affects me sometimes when many things pile up, but I have grown from a depressed, angsty teenager to a sunny and bubbly adult through therapy and medication. I am no longer taking medication. I have not self-harmed in 9 years. Story 19. I was about 22 years old. I had recently graduated from undergraduate studies and was taking a year off before continuing my education. Since high school, I had always wanted to study infectious diseases. My plan was to eventually earn a master's degree in epidemiology. After completing my undergraduate degree, I binge-watched Grey's Anatomy for the first time and suddenly decided I wanted to pursue nursing. I researched nursing schools and was interested in a 2-year accelerated program since I already had a bachelor's degree. I even took 2 physiology courses required for the application. Everything was lined up. Then I realized that nursing might not be the right path for me, and it would not be like Grey's Anatomy. I ultimately earned a Master of Science in Epidemiology. I graduated with that degree 4 years ago, and I am very glad I did. I am happy with my choice. Nursing would not have been suitable for me. I have social anxiety and do not enjoy interacting with people. I do not like blood or bodily fluids. Shift work is not for me. Working as a nurse during the COVID-19 pandemic would have been very stressful and frightening. Additionally, nurses often face abuse from patients, which is unfortunate. I enjoy working a 9-to-5 schedule, Monday to Friday, sitting at my computer all day. Story 20. Trying to be a raver girl at around 15 to 16 years old. Candy bracelets up to my elbows, peace, love, unity, and respect culture, neon-colored shirts, and fluffy leg warmers. I was never able to go to the events because they were for 18 and older. Instead, my friends and I would gather around the family computer every weekend, watching fan-made music videos of popular techno songs while making candy. We promised ourselves we would go to raves when we turned 18, but we outgrew it before then. Story 21. Wearing a dog collar. I still have them, but they live on my stuffed animals or in a special drawer. Story 22. Wearing shorts in the winter. From 2002 until 2007, I rarely wore pants. If I did, it was for a formal event, work, or when I was out in the snow doing something. My mom said she wished I would grow out of that phase because I looked like a crazy person wearing shorts in 15-degree weather. I said it was not true and that I hated pants. I did, in fact, grow out of that phase. Story 23. Being a vegan lasted for 4 years. I was convinced I would be vegan for life. My grandmother thought it was stupid and even said, "Well, if you are still vegan at 30, I owe you $3,000. She thankfully does not have to pay up. Story 24. Catholicism. I started studying religion in high school and ended up majoring in the subject in college. When I first started, I was fascinated by Catholicism to the point that I attended services and applied to 2 Catholic universities. My Jewish mother was truly baffled by this, especially since I had recently come out as bisexual. By the time I graduated high school, my mom was gracious enough not to say, "I told you so," when I decided that Catholicism or any sect of Christianity just wasn't for me. Story 25. When I was a kid, my mom refused to let me have or try things because she said it was just a phase. Completely normal kid things to want to try or like. She told me when I asked for Power Rangers wallpaper, it was just a phase and I wouldn't like it in a few years. She put up this weird dog stuff with matching pink curtains. I hated pink as a kid and still am not a big fan. I had zero say in it. The joke is on her. I still love the series I grew up with, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to Power Rangers Wild Force. She also called my love of martial arts a phase. 20 years later, I still love it. It's my passion. Things that were a phase, I didn't really get to go through phases because I wasn't allowed to. Mom tried to make me into a horse girl, but it didn't work. She really pushed horses on me. I just wanted to do martial arts. It took a lot of arguments, her being upset that horse riding was too expensive, and me getting a teacher involved at school to get me into classes. Luckily, karate was cheap. Even if I did every class they had in a week, it was cheaper than riding. I was very sad for a time, but I had valid reasons to be that sad. I didn't go through music phases because I wasn't allowed music since Mum didn't like my tastes. Mum controlled my food, clothes, mostly hand-me-down boys' clothes, hair, who I saw, which was no one, and the TV I watched but not the DVDs or games I played, which was weird. Story 26. Witchcraft. I live near Salem, Massachusetts, and bought all the crystals and cheap Llewellyn books, especially those by Silver Ravenwolf, that my mid-teen self could afford. Then I went to college for a hard science and promptly grew out of it. Story 27. Though I still love Gothic style, it is more of an appreciation than me being Gothic and listening to Gothic music. My best friend, on the other hand, is still Gothic. So it is a phase for me but not for her. Now we are the pink girl and Gothic girl best friends. Story 28. Wanting to be a missionary or nun, I was convinced this was my purpose and got annoyed when my parents tried to make me reconsider. I am married now with a baby and do not really relate to institutionalized religion anymore. Story 29. Vegetarian in 4th grade. Swore to never eat meat again that morning but ate a hot dog that evening by choice. Story 30. My first boyfriend. The first. We are going to be together forever. I remember he was a really terrible person and awful to me. My sweet mom tried to gently explain that it probably was not forever. But of course, 16-year-old me would not hear it. Story 31. Not thinking dragons were cool. I thought they were rad as a kid. Then I lost interest and thought they were cringe. Now they are amazing again. Story 32. Nothing. The 3 things I was told were just a phase are still a big part of my life. Being gay, my debilitating Buffy obsession, and boy bands. Story 33. Probably Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I played them every day at school from grade 6 to 9, but then we did not have the same lunch periods anymore with my friends. Then I moved on to Halo 2 and Halo 3, but only for birthday parties since no one had Wi-Fi at home then for Xbox Live. I am envious of kids who can play online with their friends every day. Story 34. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I got into World Wrestling Entertainment. My parents both said it was scripted and that I would eventually stop watching. By 11 or 12, they were right. I became much more interested in talking to girls and playing sports than watching grown men wrestling in underwear. Also, my phone. My dad specifically said one day I would hate having to text people back. He was very accurate. If I am not on a call with work at this point, good luck getting a response in a text. Call me or it is not happening. Story 35. Had a rockabilly and greaser phase. I still love the music and fashion, but I can't put in the effort for that hair anymore. Story 36. I was going to be a journalist. My mother convinced me to get a business degree. I work in software support. My little sister, however, is a journalist. Story 37. Not wanting to swear, I was such a sensitive kid that I broke down whenever I was accused of saying one, purely because I thought they were inexplicably evil. I never finished a book once because it said damn in it. A complete change was long overdue. Story 38. When I was 12, once in a car, because of a trick of the light, I told my mom it looked like she had a pink outline around her. A day or two later, she sat me down seriously and mentioned indigo and crystal children and how they see auras. I thought it sounded cool, so I went with it. I said, yeah, totally. Sometimes they're green, sometimes they're yellow. And from there, I looked it up on my own. One day, at a family friend's house, My mom asked me to come to the table where the adults were hanging out. They started asking what color their auras were, etc. I must have been clumsy at pretending because that was the last time auras ever came up. I never mentioned it again, nor did my mom. But that was my month or so spent as a psychic superchild. Story 39. Facial piercing desires, thankfully. I never put anything in my face because my mother would not allow it, and neither would my agent. Story 40. Not really anything, to be honest. I basically wore all black as a teenager, went to university, and started to dress normally because I did not want to stand out. Then, in my late 20s, I thought, forget it. I like wearing black. And who am I trying to please by avoiding it? My mother. So I started dressing how I want again. Otherwise, I still have all the same hobbies and music tastes. I have just expanded to pick up new ones. It was kind of a phase when I was pretty politically active from age 16 to 20, but as the years went on, I got angrier and more jaded at the state of the world. It was really bad for my mental health trying to keep engaging in it. Actually, I lied. Being teetotal was a phase. So was being vegetarian. I have a drink on occasion now and focus more on ethical and moderate consumption of meat rather than excluding it entirely. Story 41. I do not think I had this literally because I could not see any point in arguing. How do I prove that a phase is not a phase except by letting its permanence speak for itself, years or decades after the dismissal? If we are being less literal, paganism. I eventually lost interest and became an atheist, which did not please Mom any better. Really, I regard almost any interest as a phase. It interests me until it does not anymore. Story 42. Punk and hardcore music. I was really into it as a teenager and my mom would drive us to shows every weekend. She was fine with it because she thought it was just a phase. It turns out it was just a phase that has lasted for over 30 years. Story 43. Not liking women in fiction. Hilariously, my mother never said it was a phase. She just said a few of them were cool. Suddenly, I didn't really care what people thought of me for thinking they were cool again. Story 44. Tennis. I read Venus and Serena Williams' book and thought I wanted to play tennis at school. I lasted 2 days. Story 45. MJ phase. I still love the music, but not in the obsessive way I did as a 12-year-old. I remember having a genuine fear that I would be stuck listening to only his music forever because of the severe hyperfixation on it. Story 46. Going through my I only wear black because it matches my soul phase at 15. Dyed my hair black, wore thick eyeliner, and insisted everyone call me Raven. My mom found my old diary recently, full of angsty poems about how nobody understood me. Story 47. Basically, any career path I said I was going to pursue when I grew up. Zookeeper, mechanic, professional snowboarder. I never snowboarded in my life as I grew up in Texas. Now, I am a digital designer. Story 48. From 1999 to 2000, I was in the gothic phase. I wore all black clothes, black makeup, and chains. My parents refused to let me dye my hair black, so there were boundaries. I stopped after less than a year. Story 49. My I want to be English phase as an angsty Generation X American teenager. I spoke with a poor accent, added extras in my words, read British magazines that I had to special order, and watched shows on home box office that were from England. The last laugh was on me, though, because during that phase, I discovered a show from England called Threads. I still have nightmares and joined a Threads survivors group on Facebook. Story 50. Dating girls all through college and then in my 20s, for a decade. When I broke up with my last girlfriend, I said, forget it. Let's just see if guys are where it's at. Now I am married to a man with a child. Story 51. My emotional phase. I am 40 years old, and I want to say how very grateful I am that social media was not a thing when I was going through it. Story 52. My mom said, pick out a comforter you'll be fine with for a long time. When I was an early teenager, that comforter was SpongeBob, and I quickly ditched it once I got to college. Story 53. Being a try-hard, Sasuke-like, cool loner who happened to be into Gundam Seed, middle school me was an idiot. Story 54. Long hair. At first, it was fun not having to deal with barbers, but eventually, it became more annoying than it was worth. After a year, it grew just below my shoulders and I decided to remove it. Now I have skin fades and buzz cuts. Story 55. Anime. I was one of those obsessed with everything Japan teenage girls in the early 2000s. I am so glad I grew out of that. Ironically, my 13-year-old is going through it now. Story 56. I wanted to be Lily Truscott from Hannah Montana in the 5th grade. I wore long sleeves and a beanie during the summer in Phoenix. Story 57. Stretched ears. I love how they look and all the fun earrings that are available. I started at age 15, and 15 years later, I still love my stretched ears. I also have a mohawk. Story 58. I am into the color black and like Korean pop music. I still listen to old Korean pop songs occasionally just for nostalgia. What I thought would be a phase was my love for the color green and fantasy aesthetics, which started when I read a fantasy book in 6th grade. I did not expect that it would be the interest that stuck with me into adulthood. Story 59. Thinking I was gay because being gay seemed cool and different. I wanted to be a doctor after seeing doctors on television. I wanted to be a chef after seeing chefs on television. I wanted to work in finance in London without knowing the first thing about it. Story 60. Nothing. They said I would not like role-playing, but I still do. They said I would not like animation, but I still do. They said I would not like video games, but I still do. They said I would want to be feminine, but I still do not. Story 61. I was and still am a huge punk fan of the music. I went to many shows and was totally in the scene. I tried to dress to match my music taste, but it turns out I have sensory issues. Belts, buckles, Liberty spikes, and makeup all irritated my face and skin. I am allergic to nickel and most preservatives in makeup and hair products. I basically gave myself an allergic reaction every day to fit in. So the clothing was a phase, and even if I could have handled the feeling of the clothing, I just do not think it fits me at this point style-wise. I was so convinced I needed as many face piercings as possible. Now I have no piercings and holes all over my face. Now I dress like the average Pinterest mom with minimal makeup, yoga pants, and band t-shirts, but I still enjoy Bad Religion and Fugazi. Story 62. Oof. I remember when rollerblades were life, and my teacher called it a fad. How can he be right? Nobody uses inline skates anymore. Story 63. Tattoo, colored short hair, tiny clothes, solo trips, casual emotions. All a phase. I am as conventional as I can be now and love it. Story 64. My obsession with paleontology remains. I am still very interested, but it no longer takes over my life as it used to. Story 65. Everything in life is a phase. There is nothing wrong with saying that something is a phase, but do not use that as an excuse not to take something seriously. Story 66. The vast majority of things I did were while I was under the age of 18. Except for piercing, I still do that. Story 67. I was obsessed with the Hunger Games books and wanted to get into archery. I denied that it was because of the books, but it absolutely was. My obsession grew stronger when the movies were announced. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.